friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Kate. This is a motherhood channel and I would love to have you join us. You just want to hit that subscribe button down below. Join the amazing community of mamas here. That would mean so much to me. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a personal video, and that is meeting my doctor in Nicaragua. So if you're new here, I have 3 children. I'm pregnant with my 4th. My 2 older daughters are biological. My 3rd daughter, Rosie, is adopted, and obviously this little boy that is on the way is biological. So we were foster parents for 5 years, and we were actively preventing getting pregnant in those times. Natural family planning has been the method we have used. Not ever had any struggles with infertility. I did have a miscarriage my first pregnancy, and did take about 4 to 5 months to get pregnant again after my miscarriage. That's the hardest thing I've ever gone through in conceiving a child. Marissa was a surprise baby, as well as this little guy was a surprise baby. So I'm not gonna lie, when I saw those 2 lines on the pregnancy test a couple months before we were scheduled to move to Nicaragua, I panicked a bit, as far as this was not in the plan right now. But it was always in God's plan, and God knew that we were going to be living here at the time that the baby was due, so we felt it was best to just continue forward with our plans. If there was any reason we shouldn't, God would find a way to stop us. So we felt confident moving forward. But in saying that, we had to find a different healthcare provider here, deliver the baby here. So I guess I'll start with Lily and Marissa. When I was pregnant with them, I had a midwife. My very first pregnancy, I lost at 9 weeks, and the bedside manner of my doctor, it was just my family doctor at that time, just really turned me off a doctor's care. I pursued a midwife when I got pregnant again with Lilia, and I absolutely love my midwives. I had amazing midwives. One of the midwives I had was like the 5th midwife registered in all of Ontario. She's super experienced. Just the whole team in general was amazing, and I just always thought I would have all my babies with midwives. So fast forward to today, I am a little over 25 weeks pregnant, living in Nicaragua. I was born and raised in Canada. There are no such thing as registered midwives here. So there are midwives, but they're like in rural areas of the country, and it's like generational wisdom that has been passed down to help women give birth. There's no sort of actual medical training or anything like that. And midwives technically are legal here because there is no official training program for them. And there were so many maternal deaths and fetal deaths, the government here actually made midwives illegal. So in saying that, choosing a midwife was not an option for me. There are certain program traveling midwives, but their services are quite expensive, and we are on a missionary salary, so it's just not something that I even looked into. So we are delivering with a doctor here. So I found my doctor by asking in an expat Facebook group, because I touched on this a little bit if you watched my 2nd trimester update, but I just wanted to get into it a little bit more in this video. So he was highly recommended. I really wanted a doctor who spoke English, of course. I think birth is not something that you should go through when you don't understand what your healthcare provider is saying. So it was really important to me. I am in Spanish lessons currently, and I'm doing well, but I know I'm not going to be fluent by the time the baby comes. So speaking English, the doctor speaking English was something very important to me. So one name came up several times, and how kind he was, and how nice he was, and how qualified he was. He's trained in the US and the UK, and everyone said they felt like they had great care in his hands. So I went to my very first visit when a couple weeks after we arrived here. I think I was 16 weeks when we arrived, and I was 19 weeks when I went to the doctor for the first time. My blood pressure was already high because just trying to find it and not speaking the language, trying to find the office. So my office is actually right in the hospital. We have paid into like a private healthcare program with one specific hospital. So if we have any issues, we go directly to that hospital. There's different options for health insurance here. The public healthcare is actually free here, but it is just, in my opinion, not quality healthcare. Certainly not what I'm used to in Canada. So we, for the first time in our lives, are paying for private healthcare, which in Canada we have public healthcare. I mean, obviously we pay for it through our taxes, but it's been a very different experience having private healthcare than public healthcare. So we paid into a plan. It was quite reasonable. Cost of living in Nicaragua is quite cheap. So even at a private, like very nice qualified hospital, private healthcare isn't crazy expensive. So anyways, I found the doctor's office by the grace of God. I went up to the second floor. I didn't know what tower. It said first tower, second floor. I didn't know what tower it was in. I just hit 2 on the elevator, and the office happened to be like, there was a bathroom. I needed to go to the bathroom, and the office right there. I could see his name on the glass. So I was like, oh, perfect. I found it. I was super excited. Then the nurse had me come in. I had no idea what she was saying. Nicaraguans speak really, really fast. So even though I can understand a lot of Spanish, Nicaraguan Spanish, they drop a lot of S's, which makes the whole sentence sound completely different, and they speak very fast. So it was a little bit of a challenge for me to understand what she was saying, but it was the standard, like she weighed me, took my blood pressure, and then she sent me back out into the waiting room and then called me back in for the doctor. And the doctor spoke perfect English, or speaks perfect English, and he basically asked me all of the same questions I've already been asked with a healthcare provider in Canada. You know, nothing was out of the ordinary. Basic medical history, family history, pregnancy history, all of that. The only initial red flag I had was, he said, so my daughter Marissa was 9 pounds when she was born, and I broke my tailbone delivering her. She came out quite fast. It was a little bit of a red flag to me because he said, there's no way I'd let this baby get that big. And I'm just much more prone to let my body go into labor naturally and not have unnecessary interventions. I'm a very tall woman. I think I can easily birth a 9-pound baby again. My tailbone's likely to break no matter what. So that was a little bit of a red flag for me because I don't want to be induced early, and I feel like I'm at the mercy of the doctor as far as that. So we will see. I'm going to try and stay home as much as possible and just advocate for myself that I would really not like to be induced when the time comes. And we haven't really discussed that again. I have seen him another time, but just off the bat, it was a little bit of a red flag for me because I just prefer more natural methods. Next thing that I was not prepared for at all was right off the bat, the doctor did a full pap smear, cervical exam. He did an x-ray to see if my cervix was open at all, which I thought very strange at 19 weeks of pregnancy. Had obviously internal ultrasounds for early dating pregnancies, but I've never had internal ultrasounds this late in pregnancy. And what does it really matter what my cervix is right now? Like, I'm nowhere near close to delivering. So I found that a little bit strange, but that seems to be standard procedure here. I was just not expecting that, and I've never had a male doctor, especially for that sort of stuff. So it was a little bit uncomfortable for me. I just met him, and he had his nurse in there with him, which, you know, in some ways makes you feel more comfortable because there's a female in the room with you, but in another way it's like, okay, now there's 2 people looking at my lady bits. So yeah, it was just a little bit of an uncomfortable experience for me. Yeah. I don't know if this is a normal thing. It did happen. I had another internal ultrasound at my second exam. It was super quick. He didn't do any sort of swabbing or pap smear or anything like he did in the first. Just a quick internal exam, and I think it's to check my cervix. But this doctor is also a fetal medicine specialist, so he deals with some pretty high risk situations. So I think it's out of an abundance of caution. What I did really enjoy is, coming from Canada, the ultrasound techs aren't allowed to say anything to you. So when you're having an ultrasound, especially after you've had a miscarriage, it's just never been an exciting experience for me. Yeah, it's exciting when you can see the baby, but you know, they'll just say, oh, you need to come back, or, you know, they're not allowed to tell you anything. The doctor has to tell you the results of the ultrasound. So some techs are better than others, but for the most part, you just don't really get details as to what they're actually seeing. It was really cool because the ultrasound machine is right in his office, and he was super detailed, like showed me the 4 chambers of the baby's heart. He was showing me that there was already fluid going through his organs, and that part of it was really, really neat, how like in-depth the ultrasound was, because I've never experienced that in Canada. But overall, the first appointment went really well. The other thing is blood work in the lab was very different. So the first appointment, I didn't have any blood work. Had me come back 3 weeks later at 22 weeks, and I had my full blood panel workup that you have for pregnancy. So I literally just had that in Canada, but I forgot to bring the results with me. And he said he wanted to have them done again anyways. He's my healthcare provider. I guess he has the right to want to know exactly what all the results are, and in his language and the way he's accustomed to having things done. And then I also got my gestational diabetes testing done at the same time. and another ultrasound was scheduled for that time. So I started with the blood work, and it was very interesting here. So this is new because of COVID, but they actually have like a drive-through lab. So I literally just pulled up, give my information, like kind of register. The lab technician comes out to the car. I literally sat in the back seat of our van, and she took my blood, and she came back and gave me the glucose drink to drink for the gestational diabetes testing. She came back an hour, took more blood, and then another tech came back an hour later and took more blood to do the full testing. It was just a very, like, I didn't even have to leave my car. It's a very different experience and quick. Like, when you can make appointments for labs in Canada. Before COVID you couldn't, but since COVID you've been able to. But I've had to go for blood work several times now, like before I left, and you're still waiting for like an hour after your appointment is actually booked. Everything just takes so long with public health care. You have to just wait. Like, that's just what I'm used to. So it was crazy to me how quickly the whole blood work process went, and that it was like a drive up, and it was just a very interesting procedure. And then within a couple of hours I got all my blood work results emailed to me directly, which again is not something I'm used to. Usually the blood work, you get it once you go to the doctor. There are some ways to log in. I know I'm kind of behind the 8 ball on this, but I just don't go to the doctor often, and I hadn't been to the doctor in a long time. So I know you can sign in even in Canada to get your lab results, so I don't want to say like that's not an option there. It's definitely an option, but I don't know how much detailed information you get on there. Anyways, I got a whole, like 3 separate emails with my regular blood panel, my urine analysis, and then gestational diabetes testing separately. And it was all in Spanish, so I had to do some translating to kind of figure it out. But anyways, everything, it turned out to be fine. But after I went for all that blood work, I went just right up to the office in the hospital, and the doctor saw me and did my full anatomy scan, confirmed it was a boy. He did another internal exam like I mentioned earlier, which again was just quick, but I think he's just checking my cervix, which is normal. So I'm hoping that is not an every appointment thing. Just, I'm not at all used to that and not really comfortable with that, but it does kind of seem to be normal here. So I guess I'll let you guys know how it goes on my next appointment. Everything went well. I see him again on the 15th. We haven't discussed like birth plan, labor, or any of that in too much depth yet, other than him mentioning that he would likely induce me because of how big my last baby was. So we will see how that goes. The hospital is beautiful. It is, I'm going to insert some clips here. It is, like, from what I've heard, people in the States who have very beautiful, nice hospitals, we